Alright, welcome. So there was a request to do a build video for BAKASURA for Season 4. Now if you have played him back in Season 3, so far as of this recording in Season 4, not much has changed with him. There are a few different things to point out, but that's about it. However, this is more aimed towards the newer players of Smite. Maybe you've never played BAKASURA before, or you're looking for a start for jungling as BAKASURA. We'll cover all that here. And again, if you are a more experienced Smite player, you probably already know what to go to build for BAKASURA. So let's get right into it, starting with the jungle start for BAKASURA, and then we go into the other game modes, except duel. I don't talk about duel, it's a whole different beast in its own. So yeah, if you are playing BAKASURA in Conquest, more than likely you're probably jungling. If so, you have the luxury of going into 2 starter items right out of the gate, where previous seasons you only had to go into 1 starter item. But with Bumba's Mask only being 500 gold, this could change in the future. Could go back up to 800, who knows. But as long as it costs 500 gold, you can go right into Bumba's Mask and then go into the Death's Toll, which allows you to have a lot of sustain between the Bumbas, the Death's Toll, and BAKASURA's too. And of course, Death's Toll also gives you that little bit of physical power and that 100 health, which it's pretty strong in the early game, like they're really early. So after you go into 2 starter items, you can go ahead and come back and start building right away. Now, I'd say there's 2 different items you could go into on your back. You can go either right into the Warrior Tabby Boots or Ninja Tabby, whichever one you prefer. Basically, just go into Boots. Or something a little bit spicier that you could try out if you're even or at least ahead where you can secure your own speed buff. You could go straight into Haste of Fatalis. Now, the idea behind this is Fatalis still has 10% movement speed. So it's not like you have 0 movement speed from this item. Gives you movement speed as long as you can secure your own speed buff, and if you're able to utilize BAKASURA's passive, which you kill an enemy, it could be a god or a minion or a jungle camp, you get 10% both attack speed and movement speed per stack. You can have up to 3 stacks, I believe. We can check that. Yeah, 10% of each. So if you could go, you could delay your boots 1 single item, just so you can have Haste of Fatalis done right away. What this allows you to do is have that early penetration, that attack speed, which I'm pretty sure Ninja has 10% anyway, but the pen and the passive is what we're looking at here with rushing Fatalis. So if you're really aggressive and you really want to be able to stick to your target right away and they can't get away from you, then that's when you can go straight to the Haste of Fatalis. So those are the 2 different routes you could go, in my opinion, right after your starter item. Regardless, in the end, you'll still have boots, you'll still have Fatalis, it's just the order in which you pick them up. But for now, we can go, into Ninja. Again, Warrior is fine if you want to go into that. Go into Fatalis. And then from here, I would say these are the 4 core items for your BAKASURA build. It doesn't matter what game mode, really. It's going into your boots, of course. Haste of Fatalis, he kind of needs that to stick to your target. And then you can go into your Kens, which is a huge power spike, at this point in time. With the with the passive on Kens and the amount of attack speed that he has built into his kit and the items that he goes into, you can easily apply or proc this passive, if you will, on Kens really rapidly, and that gives him a lot of damage as well. And of course, you still want to have some type of penetration in your build somewhere, and your 2 penetration items of choice, in my opinion, would definitely have to be Executioner. Or if you don't want to go into Executioner, like maybe you plan on going into like even more attack speed items, you don't want to overcap your attack speed. The cap for attack speed, if you do not know, is 2.5. So you got to kind of keep your passive in mind that it does give you up to 30% more attack speed. So if you plan on going into like something crazy like Oboe, or maybe like a Winged Blade or something else later on in your build, maybe you don't want to go into Xe and you can go straight into Titan's Bane. But yeah, so if you prefer Xe, you can go into that now as your pin item of choice, or maybe you don't want that and you want a different pin item, I'll say the other option would definitely have to be the Titan's Bane. It's just a flat 33% physical penetration, and that way, maybe you're not overcapping attack speed now, or instead you can use a different attack speed item instead of the Executioner. It's kind of up to you. But for now, let's just go into the Executioner. And then of course, with these starter items, when it comes to the later stages of the game, you kind of want to sell this to help finish another item, or just sell it for an actual item, not a starter item. You don't want to keep these starter items forever. Just keep that in mind. So we can go back, sell Bumba's Mask, and we can go into a different item. Now this is where your build kind of varies. Some people, maybe they like to go into a crit BAKASURA build. In that case, I maybe not have Kens, just go into Xe and then go into crit items and other items like that. So you can go into a crit to top off your BAKASURA build, or you can kind of just stick with the power and pin good old BAKASURA. So if you want to, Stone Cutting Sword, the price has been constantly reduced since it came out. I think when it first came out, it used to cost like $2,900. Currently, as you can see, it's only $2,600, so it's not all that expensive to build into, and it works really well with BAKASURA. Having additional movement speed works really well, really quick rotations, and if you have Vitalis, they're just not getting away from you. Also, what's really cool with the Stone Cutting Sword is the passive. So what it does is it's kind of like its own penetration item. As long as you land your basic attacks on your enemy, they get their physical protections reduced by 10, and it's 10 per stack. Max is 3 stacks, and it kind of gives you those protections back. So you're stealing your enemy's protections. So between that and I believe it is 2. Yeah, his 2 also gives them up to 30 protections, and then of course if you can land your takedown on your target, also reduces more protection. So basically the point is, you can kind of box your target a lot easier because BAKASURA has to put himself in the face of the enemy in order to deal damage. So if you have the Stone Cutting Sword and you have your Eat minion buffed, it lasts for 10 seconds. So maybe you can go into the jungle, eat a nice juicy buff, and then you have some protections to start you off with your engagement. Start using the Stone Cutting Sword, and that allows you to have a decent amount of protections. As you can see in the bottom left corner, we had up to 129 physical protection. So that way, in case if you are fighting a physical guy, maybe like a hunter or whatever, you stand a better chance at just kind of absorbing those attacks and dealing more damage back. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Now you may be wondering, what about just sustaining yourself outside of the Bumbas and Death's Toll in the very early? What about a lifesteal item for BAKASURA? I wouldn't say a lifesteal item is like needed, like 100% necessary. Others might feel differently because you do have your 2 to give you back a large amount of healing. I can't really easily hurt myself. It take a little bit to hurt myself. I go to like FG or Robot and then go back and eat a minion. But his Eat minion does heal you for a lot. However, there is one pretty good lifesteal item. Well, there's a couple that you could go into. For lifesteal items, if you want to, you can, of course, let's sell Death Soul. We don't need that anymore. You can go into an item called Blood Forge. Now, it is pretty expensive, $28.50. So if you do plan on buying this item, I'd recommend waiting to the late game to buy this, because if you buy this early on, it's going to really slow down your build, unless if you're like just super fed. But Blood Forge allows you to have a lot of physical power, so as long as you have these other attack speed items and you're not lacking attack speed, go to Blood Forge. It gives you 15% physical lifesteal, which is it's a kind of respectable amount. But with this passive, it really allows BAKASURA to just keep going, kill after kill, and potentially end up with a penta. That's the dream anyway. So with this passive, as long as you kill an enemy, like enemy god that is, you gain a health shield, 200 plus 10 per player level for 20 seconds. And while the blood shields activate, you gain 10% more movement speed. So you got movement speed going there, you got stone cutting, you got boots, you got Fatalis, maybe you have speed buff, and you also have your passive going. You're really fast, man. So with this Blood Forge health shield, that can allow you to potentially, tower dive, Phoenix dive. As long as you secure that kill, you're gonna have that shield, so that can allow you to get out of those dangerous situations, or continue on. It gives you the confidence to go in, go in for another kill. Another lifesteal item that you could go into, maybe you can go into Aussie. Again, just be really careful with the attack speed stat. I believe if you go into Aussie as your lifesteal item of choice, you're probably be overcapping. Not right now, but if we do go ahead and utilize our passive, we should probably be overcapping here once we kill the second one. So we're at 2.5. That's just with 2 stacks. So if you kill one more minion, we're overcapping. So again, just be kind of wary of that. In that case, you probably want to sell the Ninja Tabby and just go Warrior Tabby, and then you might be okay there. But yeah, so personally, I would go into Blood Forge, just to allow you to just kind of constantly just keep going and just eating people, pretty much. So these are really good items for BAKASURA. There's some other just flavor items that you could go into, and it doesn't have to exactly be this order either. And let's go ahead and just sell these items, just to make clear that this build also kind of applies to other game modes, except, if you're in Arena, there's no need for starter items. There's no need for a Bumba's Mask pretty much outside of Conquest. You don't need in Clash or Siege or anything like that. So the build will pretty much just look like this. Ninja Tabby is the same exact thing. Get your Fatalis nice and early. There are a couple other items here that I forgot to talk about real quick. There's Ikavol and Silver Branch Bow. So if you find yourself fighting a mostly physical team comp or mostly magical team comp in the Silver Branch case, then you could look to buy these items. I'll say these items are a lot more popular in duel. where you're directly trying to counter build, then you could utilize these items. However, in any case, if you do buy these items, whatever game mode, be sure to buy them early on. They're really great early game items, and then go back late game, sell these for other attack speed or other pin items of your choice. But yeah, back to what I was talking about, you know, going to Kins, XC, or Titans, whichever one you prefer, and then going to those items I was talking about earlier, stone cutting, and then of course the blood forge. There is another item, like if you really want to be like really scummy, you could do this, the classic frost talus, which is buy frostbound hammer. You have haste fatalis. So haste fatalis will allow you to stick to your target. Frostbound hammer will slow your target by 30% and have their attack speed reduced by 15%. And then you also have your ultimate, you can factor that in. They're just not getting away from you. So you can go to a, you know, scummy build like that. Or maybe, what about that crit build I was talking about before? So let's, you know, not have Kins in here. I have to sell these so the order kind of makes sense. But you can go into something like this if you really want to do like a crit build. We can still keep Blood Forge or whatever. The high physical power works really well with the crit items. And you can go into like a Wind Demon, Deathbringer, something like that. And this could be like your crit build of choice if you really want to just eat through squishies. You can do something like that. Or instead of Wind Demon, maybe you like Poison Star, whatever the case may be. And I believe that's pretty much it for BAKASURA for building him. You have crit, you have those other items I was talking about with the power and movement speed. If you need to counter healers, just keep in mind you could maybe get away with Brawler's B-Stick. He doesn't really have a whole lot of damaging abilities. I don't think his 3 counts as a damaging ability. It's just a self buff. So pretty much Brawlers, you can only really apply that with your 1. However, almost forgot, for Season 4, there is another option for attack speed gods. You could go into Witchblade here, so just keep in mind, it's not the same old Season 3 Witchblade. It has different stats now, but it has 2 passive. It has a passive and a So with the passive, as long as you land your basic attacks, they are cursed on your target, receiving 15% reduced healing, stacking up to 3 times, lasting for 5 seconds. So this is probably your better anti-healing item, and then of course the aura reduces the nearby enemy's attack speed by 20%. So you could go into that. Another situational item would be Winged Blade. Like let's say if the enemy team has a lot of slows and it's really preventing you from getting those kills or getting away or whatever the case may be. If the enemy team has a lot of slows, you can go right into Winged Blade, utilize that passive. If you get slowed, you get a movement speed buff, so you can just zoom on out or zoom on in, whatever you want. And yeah, I have to say that's finally all the items I wanted to talk about for BAKASURA. Again, you maybe don't want crit, and you just go into the normal items like I was talking about, Kins, and then the good old stone cutting. This would probably be like a build that I would do. Not to say like the other ones are bad or anything, it's just those are your options. And of course for relics, if you need, you know, purification beads, sanctuary, sprint, or heavenly wings as it's called now, not that great. Wouldn't really recommend it because it only cleanses the slow that is currently on you. It does not make you immune to further slows. So if you're fighting someone that constantly reapplies slows, this thing is completely useless besides the movement speed buff, which is not all that great. So you got Sunder. If you want to be super aggressive, you could Sunder your target first and then go all out and then just burst them down if you want, or use it to kind of finish them off. Oh, again, some advice here. In case if you do go into a crit build, like for BAKASURA or anybody, and the enemy team has Shield of Thorns, just keep a lookout for this, okay? Shield of Thorns, it reflects all damage taken by a decent amount, and it lasts for a very long time if it's upgraded. So if you do build crit, look out for this. Don't really attack somebody that has this and Minion Lion, because you're going to be hitting yourself for a lot. So just, if you're new to Smite, if you see that Thorns, and you're kind of low in HP and you have crit, or maybe without crit, you just be careful out there. So that's finally it. Enough rambling for me. Hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.